Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Data Europa Academy webinar. I hope you're all doing well today, and as we just give a few more moments to more participants to join, feel free to use the chat to let us know where you're joining us from. I see someone from Madrid, I see people from Denmark. Please share where you are joining us from. I'm joining today from Luxembourg. And so also in the meantime, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Flora Copello and I work at the Publications Office of the EU, specifically with the team behind the European Data Portal, Data Europa and the Data Europa Academy. And as you probably know, our mission is to showcase the value of data and how it can actually drive innovation, efficiency, and transparency across Europe. Today's webinar is part of our ongoing series on the common European data spaces, which are shared ecosystems that bring together data governance and technology to enable secure, trustworthy, and interoperable data sharing across sectors. And these initiatives, as you all know, are very important to Europe's digital transformation and also to support a fairer and greener and more competitive economy. In the past sessions, we had the chance to look at different areas of data spaces. We had the webinar on the mobility, the Green Deal, health, finance, energy, and language. And today we have the chance to have with us expert speakers that we will focus in the public procurement data space, which plays a key role in modernizing how public procurement data is managed and shared across Europe. And before we dive in, and introduce our speakers, just a few housekeeping notes. First, we start with the most asked question in every webinar that we organize, and this is if the session is being recorded. Yes, the session is being recorded. Both the recording and the presentation will be shared with you a few days after we conclude the event, so no worries, just focus on the presentation. For your questions, please use the chat as you already be doing, and we will make sure to address them in the end of the session on the Q&A. And also at the end, we will kindly ask you to fill in a short feedback survey for us. Your input really helps us improve our future sessions, so please stay until the end to get the answers to your questions and also provide us with your feedback. And now it's time to introduce today's experts. We are very happy to have them with us. Firstly, we have Marc Christopher Schmidt. Marc has worked at the European Commission since 2013 as a policy officer and team leader for e-procurement. His team manages eForms, the Public Procurement Data Space, the European Single Procurement Document, and eCertis. With over 20 years of experience in digital procurement, starting at Germany's Federal Procurement Agency in 2003, Marc collaborates closely with member states to simplify public procurement for both buyers and suppliers. Welcome, Marc. Then we have with us David Lucas. David is a project manager with over 13 years of experience in IT, focusing on database migrations, linked data, data mining, and AI. Since 2022, he has supported the European Commission on data interoperability initiatives like PPDS, the European Railway Agency, and AI-driven projects such as GPT at EC and complaints handling with AI. Following, we have Natalie Muric. Natalie joined the European Commission in 1993 and the Publications Office in 2001, working on TED notices, procurement operations, and standardization. For the past 9 years, she has focused on the e-procurement ontology, a key component for linking data within the PPDS. And lastly, we have with us Ivo Velitchkov. Ivo has over 30 years of experience helping public and private organizations with strategy, structure, and information. Since 2011, he has worked with EU institutions, leading graph-based solution implementations and training over 1,000 people in semantic technologies. Recently, he has contributed to the Public Procurement Data Space. And with this, I want to thank all of our speakers. And as we move now to today's agenda, just to let you know, we just that was all. That was an introduction. Now it's the main part. Now it's the part that we're gonna learn from our speakers today. So Marc, David, Natalie, and Ivo will present over the next 40 minutes different aspects of the public procurement data space, and they will share insights from their work. And after that, as we promised, we will have a dedicated Q&A session where they will address your questions. And with this, thank you all for being here, and let's get started. Marc, the floor is yours.
Many thanks for the possibility to say more about the public procurement data space. We have tried for this presentation to show different angles of the public procurement data space. I will present mainly the policy side of the PBDS. So why do we need the public procurement data space in the first place? We have in Europe roughly, can you hear me? I hope so. Okay.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So we have roughly 250,000 buyers all over Europe who spend 2 trillion euros. Actually, by now it's 2.3 trillion euros every year, which is roughly 14, actually now it's 15% of GDP. And they procure in many relevant key areas like infrastructure, education, energy, waste, health, social protection. And what we can see is that through Tenders Electronic Daily, which is a platform provided by the Publications Office, we have only 20% of notices concerning public procurement procedures, and 80% on the side of the member states. The reason why we have only 20% with the public procurement directives in Europe, we only cover procedures that are above a value of, let's say, 200,000 euros for services and goods and 5 million euros for works. All the rest is done on member state side. Now, we aim not to have only the data that is available on TED, but also from the member states. The main ideas of it is to enable easy access to public procurement data to all user groups. We want to improve monitoring of public procurement in the EU, which is really currently still lacking. We want to reinforce transparency, something that we also try to do is to improve data quality, because we see that the data quality sometimes is lacking a lot. We want to raise the level of competition in public procurement, which is very important because we see over the last 10 years that there was a decline of competition. With the PBDS, we also want to have a much closer, or we do a lot of collaboration with the member states, which is very important because the PBDS should help on both sides. And then the PBDS relies on e-forms. E-forms are actually the technical format on how notices should be published on TED. They were revised very lately, and they are much more data-driven than the old forms. The state of play is, of course, we have the data from TED. Currently, we have 4 countries connected to the PBDS to also share data for below the thresholds, like Germany, Austria, Finland, and Norway. There is currently a TSI project, which includes 5 other countries: Portugal, Italy, Malta, Cyprus, and Slovakia and Latvia. So they will also be connected to the PBDS in the coming, it will take roughly a year, maybe a little bit more to connect them. And already now, many more countries have indicated that they would like to be connected to the PBDS. So my hope is that in a few years we will have all countries also sharing their data with the PPDS, so that we cover more or less 100% of public procurement information. When it comes to the use cases of the PPDS, in the beginning, we actually have three main use cases. We have the dashboards. The link is provided in the presentation. So we offer monitoring of the public procurement market, which is the very basic element. We also have a quality dashboard to show that to show the level of data quality, and something that we were able to introduce due to the new forms, e-forms. We have their fields dedicated to strategic procurement. Strategic procurement means green, social, and innovative procurement. And for that, we have a dedicated dashboard. But this is really just the beginning. In the future, we want to expand the role of the PPDS to do much more. But currently, we are still working on the basics. And I think that was it already from my side. I hand over to Flora, you, or to
Yes.
David?
You can do it directly to David. Thank you so much.
Yes, I will do it directly.
Thank you, Marc.
David, your turn.
Thank you so much, Marc. Wonderful presentation. Let's move forward with the architecture. Here, I would like to share with you, let's say, some of the principles that we were following to build a PPDS. And I think this kind of things is important, because when you start defining this kind of big projects, it's important to stay with some principles that follow some policies. I think it's very important to meet all these policies that from the Commission we are providing. So let's say that one of the non-functional requirements that define the principle for the PPDS architecture, first of all, is interoperability. At the end of the day, the goal of PPDS is to share data in a way that could be, let's say, interoperable for all the member states. That's why we are using the e-procurement ontology that Natalie will speak about it later. Also, we were trying to use as much as we can open source solutions, trying to avoid this kind of solutions that you had to pay the fee, you don't have control about it. We were thinking, let's use what is available, that is open source, you can review the code, it's transparent for everybody, because in the end, what we are trying to do is to be transparent with the data. So let's do the same with the architecture. Something that also we try to follow is to be cloud agnostic, to avoid the vendor locking. I think it's very important, especially in this kind of geopolitical situation that we are currently, that most of the cloud companies are American. And I think it's important to be able to move from one infrastructure to other. And linked with this is the portability. I think it's very important. You can move from one infra to another without any kind of lock from the vendor. And all these principles is not something that we wanted because they are nice. Actually, they are linked with some policies. And I think that here the most important ones is the Interoperable Europe Act. I think it's the key of the policy that we are following on. But same Data and Data Governance Act, they are following many similar principles, like, for example, to use open source, to use ontologies to interoperability, etc., etc. So now I would like to go a bit deeper with a couple of principles. Let's start with the open source. This is something that right now many other projects in the Commission, they are start following, and because it has many good points. Of course, first is the transparency. You can go to the source code. It's something that is there. The community is supporting all these solutions, and they are quite trustfully. Of course, you will save money. I think it's good if, from our perspective, we can save money in the projects that is money from the taxpayers. All these solutions usually are based on open standards. So it makes that all the integrations always are following the standards on the internet that improve the interoperability. Allows you also to have some flexibility, even you can collaborate with the source code if you don't find something that you need. The security, all this is open source. Everybody can check how it was built. So if there is any kind of vulnerability, will be found by the community very fast. And of course, as I mentioned before, with all these geopolitical situations, it's very important because in some point of time you want to reuse PPDS, let's say the architecture, and give you a lot of freedom. You don't need to negotiate any kind of license or whatever. So give you this kind of independence that we are looking for. The other principle I wanted to highlight is the cloud agnostic, because it's very important now that the cloud is the trend, but it's very important to be free, not to be locked by the vendor, because if you are using one specific vendor and you cannot move, they can increase the price very high, or to have problem with the right now with the geopolitical situations. It's very important to be free to move, to have this flexibility to move to another cloud providers, or even to work with many if you build properly. Also, it will increase your resilience because you are not relying in the native solution from the cloud. You can be, let's say, you can define your own disaster recovery options. Of course, if you optimize, the cost can be much lower. You can escalate more. You don't have the constraints that are imposed for the vendor. And something that is very important is in terms of the regulations like data protection or other kind of regulations, could be easier to meet all these requirements and to be to keep the sovereignty about your infrastructure. And of course, if new things are popping out in the community that are out of the vendor, you can implement. So after this, I would like to share with you high-level overview about the architecture of the PPDS. I think it's important to remark here, when we are talking about data spaces, we are not talking about traditional applications. We are talking about data pipelines. The approach is different. The functional part is small, and the big part is backend. It's how all these data pipelines working, the collection, the transformation, the loading, all these things. So let me go with you a bit to understand what is the journey of the data in this project. First of all, we need data providers. They are our main data sources. So once you have an agreement with one of these data providers, you sign a MOU that right now is digital, where you define the policies about how to use this data. Then you build the different data sources. Sorry, you build the collection for all these data sources, where you are collecting dependence of the data source from SFTP or API or whatever is the way you have to adapt to be able to collect all this data. After that, we start for our use case, because PPDS use cases are a bit different from other data spaces that I will mention after that. We need to transform the data. We transform metadata, but also for sure data. And when I mention transform, I mean to use the e-procurement ontology to standardize all the data. The data is not in different formats. All the data is using the same data model, that is the ontology. After that, due to our use cases, we need to materialize the data. In this case, we are using a different knowledge graph, some for data, for metadata, for depending on the case, right? And then comes the part that is more functional, that is the calculation, in this case, of the indicators, but also we have another tools like a Sparkwell toolkit and other ones. But the point, we need to have this kind of analytics layer where we are working with the data, we are bringing value with the data. It's not just raw data and that's all, no. We are calculating the single market indicators to bring in a dashboard, and people can check there what is the data and how the indicators were calculated. So as you can see here, this is the data journey that we have in this data pipeline. And now something that I mentioned before, that our use cases are a bit different perhaps from another data spaces. Let me explain why. PPDS is not fully federated. And why? First of all, because our scope is more ambitious. We are not only using vocabularies for metadata, we are also standardizing the data. It means that if the data sources, they don't deliver the data in using the ontology, we have to do it because we want to have all the data with the same data model. That means that if the data sources cannot do it right now, we envision in the future that they will be able to do it, but right now it's not the case. We had to do this job. So in order to have a good performance, because we had many technical challenges, we had to materialize the data. That's why it's not fully federated. Plus, in our case, to calculate the indicators, it requires many operations like aggregation calculations, many, that if we are doing on the fly, we were experimenting technical problems. Sometimes, one thing is the theory for data spaces, but the engineering part can have some limitation that is also important to take into consideration. Summarizing what I mentioned, the main reason because we are not fully federated is technical challenges. We are working right now to solve all these issues to be able to be fully federated. The sooner the better. But right now we had to do some trade-off in order to meet all the challenges. And that's the reason because I mentioned we are not fully federated, but we will. I think now is the moment for the next colleague. So Natalie.
Can you hear me? Hello, can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I think that was very clear and provides a good introduction to the ontology. So I will give you a brief history on the ontology. So the work started in 2017 and we finished this week, 2025. We've done all the modules of the ontology, so it is complete. Obviously, you can see the arrow that shows all the work we have done carries on because there will be evolutions, there will be new use cases. But for the time being, we have covered the whole life cycle of the public procurement. So we started with a core, which was the main basis, and then we added different parts of the procurement life cycle. You will see it's not necessarily, this list is not necessarily in the order of the public procurement life cycle, which would normally be notification, then e-access and e-submission. The order that it was done in was the order that people had use cases and wanted to cover things, okay? The reason behind the ontology was that we realized there was many projects throughout Europe covering the different modules, but they were all using a different vocabulary. So the idea behind the ontology was to create a common vocabulary that could be used in all the parts of the procurement life cycle, and also to make it linkable, and so that data used, for example, in the notices could be reused in e-invoicing, that systems that use notices can then link to systems that are using invoicing and just extract the data. Okay, so for example, for the moment, the PPDS is using e-notification data. Okay. So let's continue. So what does it actually do, the EPO? I think I slightly covered this, and so did David. So it provides a common understanding of the concepts used in the public procurement life cycle both in human readable format and machine readable format. Now, how do we go about doing this? Well, we start by creating diagrams, okay? And we have been working with a working group of experts where they explain to us how the different pieces of data are related to each other and to give clear definitions of the data. Okay, so we've been working with experts to ensure this is done. We then we have created an application that then transforms this human readable format into machine readable format. So it provides OWL and shackle formats, okay? Having these OWL and shackle formats, this enables the data that uses this model to be available as linked open data. Now, this has facilitated already publication in the TED Open Data Service. So in the TED Open Data Service, we provide the notices that are published on the TED website in an open format. Currently, we have all the competition notices since eForms was created. We use version 4 of the ontology. And we hope to have, by the end of the year, all notices published since eForms was created. It has also facilitated the publication on the PPDS. So here they've used the version 3.1 of the ontology. And they have published, they provided a dashboard as presented earlier by Marc Christopher and David. Okay, by the end of this year, we hope to be able to transform everything to version 5 of the ontology, so that everything will be available in a consistent way, both on the TED Open Data Service and the Public Procurement Data Space. So, where can you find the machine readable formats? You can find them on GitLab. I've given you here, I provide the link. You can see the page, and on the side you can see the format where it explains the definition of lot award outcome, for example. Then I also give you the link to our documentation site, and you can see on the bottom right-hand corner, there is the human readable format where you can see the diagram, you can see the lot award outcome. And actually, if you were in the human readable format, you could see the definition, and you can see the lot award outcome is actually an award outcome. Okay, so now, what are the further uses of the ontology? Well, as I explained earlier, the PPDS is using for the moment data from e-notification. In the future, it could also take data from other parts of the procurement lifecycle, like from e-fulfillment, e-ordering, e-invoicing. So you can link it back to the data. Contracts registries would be able to see which invoices have been paid and how much of the contract has actually been used just by linking the data that exists. The e-procurement ontology also could provide valuable input for the revision of the procurement directives, as it has this common language across the whole procurement life cycle. So with that, I will hand over to Ivo, who will tell you a bit more about the rules and how the actual PPDS works. You're there. I hand over to you, Ivo.
Thanks, Natalie. So David explained already the overall architecture. I would like to quickly walk you through the flow of data in PPDS. And for a couple of components, I'll say a bit more. So I hope this diagram can help in that. There are three zones. On the left, you see data sources. In the middle is the part that for the creation of PPDS knowledge graph, and on the right, there are some data services. So as data sources, we have the tender tectonic daily. That's already something which Marc Christopher explained. It contains procurement procedures for procurement procedures above thresholds. This is centralized, it's compulsory for all members of the European Economic Area. If you are curious about the actual thresholds, I can share here a link. And so below the thresholds, we take the data directly from the API of the member states. Currently, we have four member states that are included, 4 members of the European Economic Area: Norway, Finland, Germany, and Austria. And in the coming years, we hope to onboard all the rest. So the data comes currently in XML and JSON format. Maybe in the future we'll have also other formats. Then I go to this middle part, this sausage in the data verification. We have data construction. Data construction is, as many of you know, where you make 3 transformations, which you transform local IDs into global IDs. You transform different structure into a unified structure, that of the triple, and importantly, you apply it unified semantics. That semantics comes from the e-procurement ontology that Natalie explained, and apart from that, we apply different reference data sets. There are about 60. They include taxonomies like the common procurement vocabulary, and different value lists, controlled value lists called NAOS, named authority lists, maintained by the Publications Office. I can share that as well as another resource. So all that is taken as an input of the transformation mappings. They apply it on the coming data, and we have the initial version of the knowledge graph. Then there is a validation for which we use Shackle. And then there is a reconciliation enrichment. Reconciliation is needed because at the initial point of transformation, it's not possible to disambiguate. There are some cases where 2 documents create 2 different IDs for entities which are actually the same entity, and we also need enrichment. For example, the monetary values needs to be in euro. There are some translations needed, and so on. All this is coming from something that is an application profile of the ontology for PPDS, in which we have the validation rules and the inference rules that are coming from a rulebook. I'll tell you a bit more about that. And at the end, there's some partitioning, and we have the knowledge graph, which can be used in different ways. Currently, there are a few ways available. One is direct access services. I'll tell you a bit more about that. And then there are dashboards that Marc Christopher mentioned. Some of them are related to quality, other for procurement indicators like single market indicators. Let me share that as well. You can actually, I'll not tell you more about that because you can actually go and use it right away. So a few words about something we call direct data access services. So not those through the dashboards, but directly to the data. We have a Sparkle editor that is a bit richer than other Sparkle editors. You can select and select name graphs. You can select templates for different queries and so on. You have also a place to download data dumps, and we plan a few more direct access services there. And then about the rulebook. So that's maybe a bit different than other data spaces. It's provides a registry and governance for all kinds of rules. So that includes data governance rules, business rules, data quality rules, reconciliation rules, things that shorten property paths, and so on. The other benefit is that they improve query performance. So we have shortcuts that are created based on rules. We have pre-calculation and so on. And the third thing, apart from the FAIR principles, PPDS strives for data centricity. So which rules try to discover rules that are hidden in the application layer and expose them one by one as declarative rules as part of the PPDS knowledge graph. So basically, the rule book itself is just a purposed open GitLab repository where the rules follow workflow from idea to draft to being accepted and then implemented. Here you see such a one of the boards where you see this workflow. There is methodology, which is a set of conventions to use specifically in a specific way. This repository, and actually here you see how it interacts with the rest of the architecture. We have the GitLab repository, which is the rule book that refers to the rule sources. They might come from the legislation or decision at the working group meeting. And then there is a harvester that transforms these rules into RDF. But of course, that is also related to the implementation. So these rules defined in English are then encoded as shackle rules. Those that are for inference, those that are for validation are again shackle shapes. And then we have the rule engine that is producing the inferred triples based on these rules. So we have the rule definition graph, the rule graph, the graph of rules that is that are encoded, and all of them, of course, can be queried collectively. We have the asserted graphs directly from the sources from auto transformation, and the graphs with inferred triples. And I think that was all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ivo. Thanks to all of our speakers. We're actually very much in time, so I want to thank you for this. It's very important. That means that we will have now more time to move to our Q&A session. So I want to invite all our speakers to open their cameras and join us for the Q&A session. Perfect. We have Ivo, we have Natalie, we have Marc, and David. Perfect. And we have received a couple of questions. I see some of them have already been answered, but let's start from the beginning. I will start with a question that I think is partially answered by you, Marc Christopher, in the chat, partially quite a lot answered. It's related to the private sector, if they can access the public procurement data space data. Can you maybe further elaborate on this? Marc, can you hear me? I think either I have a connection issue or okay, you don't hear me. We hear me. Okay, perfect. Let's then give it one more try. Is any one of our other speakers being able to hear me? So we can move on to one.
Yes.
Perfect, perfect.
Yes.
We give Marc the time to reconnect with us. Maybe, David, let's move to the questions received regarding the technology. I think you answered the majority of them, and you're mentioning that the technology that you're using for transforming the data is RML. During your data transportation process, many other users mentioned that these RML transformations can be slow, and they would like to know if you can give them your expertise and advice on this aspect.
Well, it's slow. It depends on what are your requirements, right? In our case, we don't need to publish the data in real time. It's not like a electricity grid or other kind of use cases that if the data is not in real time, you can have problems. In our case, let's say our data is published daily, but if it has a minute of delay, it's not a problem for our use case. Apart from that, RML is one of the most important standards supported by the W3. So that's one of the reasons because we decided to move forward with RML. But I would like to mention that right now we are performing a proof of concept with SparkQuell anything in order to improve all this pipeline of transformations. So perhaps once we have, let's say, more clear view about this proof of concept, perhaps we can think that a change could be done. But right now, we don't have a problem with the transformation per se. I would like also to reply perhaps the previous question as Marc cannot join. It's about if I think private operators can use the public procurement data. Yes, the idea is to make this data public, right? So I think it's very important that the transparency from the public sector, because we are talking about public procurement, means that this is the money from the taxpayers. So the idea is that everybody will be able to access to this data.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. And we will come back into the technology aspect in a minute. I would like now to ask a question to Natalie. It's related, I will touch upon one that is related to AI. AI is moving rapidly into the semantics field, for example, by creating synthetic metadata. Our participant is asking, is all the time-consuming attention for the PBDS semantics ontology thus still needed? And how are you planning to anticipate the rise of AI in the field of semantics?
Okay, so one of the things that has been identified is that the e-procurement ontology will provide valuable input to training AI because it gives clear definitions and it's machine readable. So it will be a way forward for the AI to be very accurate on the public procurement sector. I hope this answers the question.
Thank you, Natalie. I don't know if someone else from the two of you, Ivo or David, wants to further elaborate on this or share your aspect.
Okay, regarding AI, for our use cases, we don't plan to train, let's say, models per se. What we are doing is to work with some models that are specialized with the technology that we are using. For example, one of the use cases that we would like to implement for the next year or even the following months is to be able or to let the users to ask a question in natural language, and that natural language will be converted in a SparkQuell query that can query in a very accurate way the data that that person wants to retrieve. This is, I think, one of the main use cases that the users are expecting. So the idea is even in the future to evolve more and to have like a chatbot where someone can ask the let's say to the PPDS like can I know in this year, in this month, in this country, who was the main winner of contract, blah, 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 things like that. And that's, I think, one of the most important use cases, because right now we have a lot of information, but sometimes to ask about all this data is complicated, right? Especially with SparkQL, that is not as easy as can be SQL. And all this kind of AI technology will help the users a lot to retrieve the data that they want.
Thank you, David. And now would like also to touch upon some questions related again to technology, but more on the aspect of the graphs. So, Ivo, we received a question for you about what technology do you use to store the graphs, and also do you already give linked data access to the graphs?
At the moment, we use a triple store, which is the only part of the architecture that we had available from before. So it is the only part which is not open source, and we plan to move to fully open source. And regarding the access, I already mentioned that we have service called Direct Access Services, which contains Sparkle access. Now we are finalizing by improving the user management of that part. But if people are already interested, they can get credentials and be involved in testing of that part. One of my slides included a screenshot of that service. Maybe some other interesting statistics. Now, currently the knowledge graphs is 2 billion triples. There are about 30 named graphs in it, and we try to keep everything queryable, including the shackle shapes, the validation reports, the rules, everything. I can't hear you, Flora.
You are muted, it seems.
You're muted, yeah.
Perfectly. Now you can. I hope you can
Yes.
hear me.
Yes.
Quick question: does the EPO include rules or specifications on the creation of unique identifiers to tag, for example, a procurement procedure, contract, invoices, in order to follow the data source to pay? I think this is a question for Ivo, but if someone else would like to jump in.
I could not quite understand the question. Can you repeat it, please?
Yes. Does the EPO include rules or specifications on the creation of unique identifiers to tag, for example, procurement procedure, contract, invoices, in order to follow the data source to pay?
Data source. I think Natalie can answer this question, to my
Yes.
knowledge.
Okay, so what the EPO actually does, it provides like a map to the whole public procurement domain, okay? So the procedure has an identifier. How this is actually implemented would be done via different application profiles. We provide a way of doing things. Then it is for people to decide how they will use it, okay? But an identifier is an identifier. If you want to create a specific UUID, this is up to the individual people how they do it, and it is hoped that the domain will, people within the domain will talk to each other. For example, in the PPDS, they will use a certain procedure identifier, which will become well known and other people can use it. You can also link from your identifier to their identifier, showing this is the
We can't hear you anymore, Natalie.
I think, Natalie, yes, we cannot hear you. Today it's
Yes.
it's one of the days that we have the technical issues, but we will move ahead. We hope Natalie will come back to join us. So we will move ahead with the next question.
Maybe I can quickly continue to what Natalie said.
Perfect.
So
Thank you,
for the procedure ID that are published on TED, it's actually mandated through the specifications that the services have to use a UID version 4. This is, of course, then reused in the PPDS or in the EPO. But as Natalie said, this is really coming from the domain. And how this is done for e-invoicing also comes from the domain. And for e-invoicing, it's even for, I would say, even the member states who decide on how they are actually doing this. So there is not a common way. It's really domain specific.
Thank you, Marc. Natalie, in the meantime, Marc continued your answer. I don't know if you would like to further develop on what you were talking before. Otherwise, I have another question.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
I don't know what happened. I don't know how much of what I said before anyone heard, because I thought everyone could hear me. But I think Marc Christopher explained it very well. I mean, we provide the canvas for people to have a common understanding so that everyone treats the same thing in the same way, both in input and in analysis. And then how they attribute their identifiers and things is up to the domain. Perfect. And their use of the ontology.
Now I have a question. I think it's a general question, so feel free to jump in, whoever would like to answer. I will address it first to Marc Christopher, but then feel free to jump in. So the question is related to the collaboration with the member states. Member states can share the data only on a voluntary basis, and until now, only 4 member states have done so. Do you envisage also some support for member states less technologically advanced, so to adapt their national datasets to your requirements? Marc, would you like to take this?
Yes, I can answer this. So currently, as I explained in my presentation, we are using the TSI, the technical support instrument, to connect member states to the PPDS. In this TSI from this year, there are 5 more countries, and already now a number of member states have shown interest to join the next technical support instrument to be connected to the PPDS. So I expect also what Ivo said in his presentation, that in the coming years, all countries will automatically be connected to the PPDS.
Thank you, Marc. We also received some questions related to the usage of Simple. Some people were mentioning why building the data space instead of using Simple or using existing infrastructures. Is Simple further than IDSA? Can someone maybe elaborate more in the Simple aspect?
Maybe I can just very quickly say something on this. We are working together with DG Connect on Simple, and we will be connecting our public procurement knowledge graph with the infrastructure of Simple Open. So this part will be connected to the other data spaces.
Thank you.
I cannot speak for the other data space. I can only really speak for our data space.
Thank you. Then we have also a general question. It's related to the technical interoperability. Like in other data space, the main attention is on this part. Could you make the legal and economic interoperability more specific, and how will the public procurement data space governance be shaped?
I think the first part of the question, I think is more for Marc, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in more other data space, I see many attention for technical. So we are, of course, at the beginning of providing the public procurement data space. There is, of course, the interest to use the data that we have in the public procurement data space also for other domains. So not to only ensure technical interoperability, but also with other domains. So this will happen automatically. And for the PPDS governance, we actually have a PPDS governance infrastructure. We have PPDS community meetings that we use to gather also feedback from the community. We have other meetings with member states also helping us to shaping to provide an overall governance of the PPDS.
Thank you, Marc. And maybe for, I think you covered also part of the second part of the answer. So maybe we can move to another answer, because we have received quite a lot of answers, quite a lot of questions. Back now to a more technical question that we received is which IAM, and I will say that means identity and access management mechanism, are in place, and do you have a centralized approach? And I think this is a question either for David or Ivo to answer.
Yes, regarding that, we had some issues to implement a U-login. That is, let's say, in terms of authentication, is mandatory for all the European Commission projects. We had some issues with that. And also for authorization, it is supposed also we have to use U-Access, because they are the corporate services from the Commission. We had some issue for the implementation. Right now, we are using Keycloak, that is an open source solution that can solve this part. But now, right now, we are working to move forward with U-login. And U-Access is not yet clear, because we want to check how, let's say, if it's something that can be reused for external organizations outside of the Commission in terms of reusability of the project. But yeah, if it is not the case, we can keep using for authorization open source solutions like a Keycloak or another ones. That's a bit the principles that we are following with that.
Thank you, David. Now we have also another question which is related to the post-award of contract. So do you consider this, this could be asked either by Marc Christopher or whoever you think it's more relevant on this aspect. Do you consider the post-award of contract to be part of the focus of your work? For example, to take the terms from the procurement and allow them to be extracted into a contract. And also this question is related, for example, to the post-contract renewal.
Maybe the main idea is also to cover in the future post-award. With eForms, we actually have a new form, also a notification form, which is about the completion of the contract. So that you have the award, the competition notice, that you have the award notice to whom you actually have given the contract, and then the completion notice, which explains how long did it take in the end, was the price the same, etc. There were already some member states who also said they would be able to share with us electronic invoices. And I think we will expand in the PPDS in the future to cover not only notices, but also, and I think also Natalie said this in her presentation, to cover also other domains.
Thank you, Marc. I think we'll take a few more minutes to answer a couple more questions before we close. So if you have to leave for another meeting, we're going to record the session, so we're already recording the session, so no worries. A question that we received was about the cloud data. Could you elaborate on the cloud data, and if you have a comment on the security of the cloud data? Now I'm looking again at Ivo and David.
Okay, I don't know what does mean cloud data, because the data is not belongs to the cloud. Just we are using as storage the cloud. This is what you mean. In terms of security, just to mention, we already passed the IT security assessment. We have IT security plan. It was validated by Digit. So in that sense, we are, I think, we are building all the architecture and infrastructure safe. So I don't think we can have like a data leak, something like that. I think the platform is quite secure. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question exactly with that, but if this person has some more questions, I can try to reply later by text.
Thank you so much, David. And another question is related to the EPO. Will the EPO be integrated into the digital product passport ontology to enable overarching interoperability?
Okay, so there's a lot about the digital product passport. For the time being, what has been foreseen is that it would be useful for the ontology to link to the digital product passport. But as I said, for the moment, we've just covered the ontology covering all the modules in public procurement. Digital passport is new, and we will be doing this looking into how we can connect with the digital passport in the future and which is the best way of doing it.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you all for first of all, for your contributions, for making it through this webinar today. I know we had a few difficulties in the connection, but we had the dream team here presenting, so we made it through even these difficulties. I want also to thank all of our audience for being here with us. If we didn't manage to answer a few questions, or were any issues you might have, not listening to me, not listening to Marc, or Natalie, we will try to make sure and include them in our report. And once again, before closing, I want to remind you that we are having more activities. We will have a webinar taking place next month, so stay tuned. We will have more news in the upcoming news on this. And if you want to continue the discussion on the Public Procurement Data Space, join the discussion on our collaboration channel. We'll be happy to see you there. I already see that you're providing your feedback, so I would like now to close the session. Thank all of our speakers, and hopefully we see you in another Data Europa Academy webinar. Thanks a lot. Have a lovely weekend and good continuation.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.